want you to look down at your hands. Look at the cuts, the calluses, the scars, all those marks that we have on our hands tells a unique story. A story of sacrifice, a story of overtime shifts, of aching backs, of nights where we came home and we may have been too tired to stand, but we still made sure we were able to be dads. Those hands that build, lift, grind, sweat are the same hands that hold our kids ever so gently, that guide them, that protect them. So in this episode, we honor those sacrifices fathers make every day. The ones our kids see when we come home tired, brow full of sweat, banged up and bruised up, and even the ones that they may never know. This is the Calloused Hands of Sacrifice. Welcome back to yet another episode of Operation Fatherhood, my fellow fathers out there. So, as y'all heard in the intro, this is dedicated to all those fathers who have been out there, who have gotten banged up, scraped up, every scar, every cut, every scrape, callus, working with our hands, tells a story. And not just one of those stories of work, but of love. Because again, why do we go to work? We go to work because we love our families. We go to work because we love to see their faces when they have everything that they need. Again, sometimes it's a pain in the ass to get up and go to work, depending on what field you're in, depending on the supervisors that you work with. Right? Sometimes we work around shitty people, right? Supervisors, fellow peers. Sometimes they're just, shitty people, assholes, but they're dealing with their own situations just like we are. So the biggest thing I think with that is loving your job for what it produces and loving what you do for what it produces. It maintains the household. It makes sure that your kids have what they need at home. And it's setting a good example, a good role model for your kids. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean the work ethic that you have. They see that. They see those things. Dad coming home tired. Dad, being all dirty, and they see that, so they don't mind as they become of age, as they get older. Hey, maybe I'll follow in my dad's footsteps. Now, not saying, I want my kids to, be in the construction field, but it's not a bad career to be in. I want them to go to school, but school's not for everybody. School is definitely not for everybody. So, again, physical labor is one of those unseen sacrifices and hidden languages that us as dads and those that, are in the fatherhood know too well. We do a lot of physical labor. Even coming up as a man, you do a lot of physical labor, cutting the grass, taking out the trash, right? Cleaning up, lifting, moving. If you, worked with your grandfather, you worked with your dad, uncles, right? There was a lot of times where I know working with my grandfather, he would build furniture. So, manual labor, learning how to be precise, learning how to, measure twice, cut once. Like those things go a long way, and you learn, as you get older, and we utilize those things and those sayings, here in our everyday lives. So the physical toll of a blue collar dad, blue collar father, right? Long shifts. We all know sometimes inside the industry, being a blue collar dad, you're working 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days at times, depending on what field you're in. So lots and lots of hours put in to our work. The overtime is great. Don't get me wrong. I love the overtime. I love, again, making that because, again, the more you make, the more you're able to provide. Not to mention Uncle Sam taking some of the taxes, which is a pain in the ass. Hopefully they don't tax the overtime. We can get that going, but that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother story we can talk about. But a lot of that overtime and those long shifts end up being backbreaking, right? I remember working in the oil refinery, and there was a lot of times where me personally I would be in the hole before I transitioned into the career that I'm currently in. I was a laborer, general laborer, working in the refineries, doing inert entrances to the big hydrocrackers, the big vessels that you see at some of the refineries, the big tall stacks that you see. Yeah, I would have to go climb in there, clean them out, usually having a respirator, a face mask of some sort, some type of breathing apparatus. And it was hard. Being in the military, again, on the submarine, I ended up learning to be in confined spaces. I'm not claustrophobic or anything, so it was okay, but it was definitely backbreaking, definitely banged my knees up. I scraped my shins, tweaked my back a couple of times. There was one time we were cleaning some sludge out of the big storage tanks. You see them a lot of times at the refineries, the big white tall tanks that are there. It's usually about 8 or 9 that are just off by themselves, kind of like a tank farm. We were in there cutting, cleaning out the sludge with what we called cutter, which is spent diesel raised to a certain temperature to be able to cut through some of the oil and the sludge down at the bottom. Well, when I was cleaning, what ended up happening to me was as I was moving about and walking, the sludge got pretty thick, and I ended up stepping into a pretty thick area of sludge, and my foot, my leg, body was kind of stiff, stuck. So what did I do real quick? Natural reaction. Oh shit, I need to get my foot out. So I yanked my foot out, ended up dislocating my hip. Talk about some pain and not going down into the sludge. So I stood there for a second. I had to have some quick thinking, and I don't know how the hell I did it, but I popped it back into place. And then I started, spraying that cutter, that, spent diesel around where my feet were, and then cleared me a path to be able to get out, of that situation, go, undress, decon, my whole suit or whatnot, and then be able to kind of rest up a little bit, get out of the hole. But man, I tell you, from time to time, especially like during the winter time, my hip starts to do this funny tingling thing. And it's crazy because in that very instance, you think self-preservation, but also I was like, man, what if that would have been worse, right? What if nobody would have been, hole watching? Now, again, we all know in the refineries, you have to have a hole watch, somebody that's paying attention. But what if there isn't anybody there, right? How am I going to get back to my family if I end up, getting hurt very severely, getting hurt here on the job? So that also runs through your mind. That physicality that we have to have is dangerous sometimes. It's definitely dangerous. It impacts your energy. It definitely impacts your energy on how to be present at home. Say you're working, 7/12s, right? And then sometimes, depending on the commute to and from, you're waking up. So, you're working, a 16 to 18 hour day. By the time you get home, take a shower, eat dinner, play with the kids, get enough sleep to be able to wake up and do it again. So I think being able to take time off, again, We all love overtime. We all love those big fat checks when you're on that turnaround. But take that time off to be able to decompress, let your body heal from some of that hard manual labor, and spend time with your kids. Like, spend time with the family, being able to barbecue, being able to sit there and throw the football around, throw the softball around. Again, me having girls, or being able to go watch a cheer competition, right? One of my daughters is a cheerleader. The other one's a softball player. And the other two are adults. One's in college. The other one is working. So just being able to be with family and not have the physicalities, not have to worry about, oh, I'm going to work, I'm going to be tired. Give yourself that grace to be able to take that time off. And I know, again, we have a lot of pride. We have a lot of, machismo to be able to say, no, no days off for me. I'm not going to quit because, again, my family needs me. But your family needs you. And what do I mean by that? Your family needs you to be at 100%. Not wearing yourself down, not killing yourself for the job, for the sake of the job. Now, again, we have to provide. We are providers. We are protectors. It's dads. That's what we do. But we also have to make sure that our cup is full, that we invest a little bit of time into ourselves to be able to provide that protection, to provide that comfort, to provide for our families. So just keep that in mind. A lot of times we push through a lot of that pain because we think we're going to let our families down. So I'm going to give you a little story, and I might get a little emotional here, so bear with me. But there was a trip that me and the family ended up going on to the Frio River in Texas. So we went kayaking. We thought it was a good idea, family outing, all the kids. We even brought the dogs at the time. And, I had checked the levels, the river levels, the flow rate, right? Things that you do before you go kayaking on the river. So, we ended up going, found an outfitter that, would, rent us some kayaks. Everybody ended up renting kayaks. And what was crazy about this trip is, where the drop off point was, river was flowing. It was good. No problem. There was a lot of people there. It was kind of spring coming into summertime. We all get our kayaks. Now, mind you, again, I have, younger ones that, needed to learn a little bit how to kayak. So I think it was crazy because me and my oldest, when we were living in Virginia, we went kayaking on the river, had a good time. We got in the kayaks. It was good. It was fun. So I was like, hey, why not do this? And we had moved back to Texas and, planned this trip. Well, when we got to the drop-off point, got everybody's life jacket on, made sure everybody had everything, made sure the dogs were good to go. They were barking up a storm, 2 miniature schnauzers that just decide to, not be very friendly around new people. So it was just a chaos for a little bit. Once we got into the water, right, my oldest, I got her in, ended up, getting the other girls in. Somebody had to get the dog. My wife ended up, getting in. And when she got in, she flipped over, ended up hitting her head with the kayak. So I think she ended up getting a mild concussion. And it was kind of a shouting match that we ended up having right there. Mind you, trying to be that provider and protector and make sure everybody is good, gather everybody, and we all go and start down the path down the river, right? Get away from the takeout point where everybody is launching and get down the river a little bit and then kind of, get organized from there. So, we fast forward, 10, 15 minutes. Everybody is good. We're kind of kayaking, and she ends up not feeling very well. Again, getting hit in the head with a hard ass kayak. Like, obviously anybody would not feel well. But not to mention the sun was out when we started getting further down into the river. There were some very low levels to where we ended up having to portage the kayaks. We had to, maneuver the kayaks over some of the rocks and get there. So it was just, like I said, utter chaos when this all happened. But in my mind, being the provider, the protector, the dad that I am, I wanted to make sure that the kids were good and I was able to get everybody to safety. So along those lines, down the river, we ended up tying kayaks together with the dog leashes. One of my daughters ended up saying, you know what? Screw y'all. She didn't really say that, but ended up saying, I'm going to just keep paddling until we get to the takeout point. So she ended up, she was ahead of everybody. She was just, trucking along. My second oldest, or my middle child ended up having problems with her kayak because we ended up getting her a kid's kayak, and she was a little bit bigger, statute wise for that kayak, and it kept sinking, and it was just crazy. She got caught up in fishing line that somebody left down the river. So to make a long story short, I get everybody tied to kayaks. We were maneuvering all the way. Once we finally are, in the clear, going to get out. I get everybody to the takeout point. We call the people saying, hey, we're here. We're going to be waiting for y'all to come, make your rounds, come pick us up. By that time, I had lost a Croc. That's why I will never wear Crocs. I dislike Crocs forever. I will never wear Crocs. But we get everybody out to the takeout point. Everybody's out. Kayaks are out. Dogs are good. They're on the leashes. I sit down and I unzip my life vest, and it was like a ton of bricks hit my chest. Started feeling the tingling down the arm. I didn't think anything of it because, again, it was a lot of portaging. It was a lot of moving around, maneuvering, paddling. I was, pulling another kayak. I just thought it was like muscle spasms. So I didn't think anything of it. I ended up taking some naproxen, worst thing to take, because I was having a heart attack. But in my mind, I just, again, brushed it off. Like, the physical labor that we just went through, the chaos we just went through, ended up having a heart attack. So not right there. And what's crazy about this is, my wife and kids ended up going back to Houston. I ended up going back to the job site where I was at, in San Angelo, Texas. And, still feeling the pain, having the indigestion, the slight tingling in the shoulder and the arms coming down to the fingertips. And I was like, man, this doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel right. Took, ate some antacids, right? Some Tums, got up, the next morning, still in a little bit of pain, still kind of feeling not 100%. Went into work, did the safety meeting, did the stretch and flex, and then guess what? I ended up going into the office and kind of slumped down in the chair a little bit and told my superintendent, I was like, hey, man, I just do not feel well. I think I am having a heart attack. And I told him I'm being stubborn. This could have ended so badly. I told him, you know what? Don't call an ambulance. I'm going to drive myself to the hospital. So I ended up driving myself to the hospital, local hospital there. And sure enough, I was having a massive heart attack. So when that happened, life flashed before my eyes. Like, how am I having a heart attack right now? But again, it was the physical labor, the added stress, the making sure, the adrenaline kept me going. But because again, we're providers, that's what we do. So, but I ended up having a massive heart attack. They ended up having to put a stent in my heart, and it was crazy. But all that to say, those dads that are out there being able to finish a 12-hour shift and show up right after to coach 10U rec softball, right? I've been there a few times too, right? Coming off of work, sometimes you don't have time to go shower. All you have to do is change, and then you got to hit the fields. We push through that pain. We push through, those bumps and scrapes for the greater good, for our kids. So a little word of advice when it comes to that: create transition rituals, right? And what do I mean by transition with rituals? Transition from being the workforce dad when you get home, right? However you want to do it, quick snack, quick shower, quick snack, however it is, take your 5-minute breather to kind of decompress, right? Let all the work shit stay there. And then bam, we put on our dad hat and we go full, dad mode. Whether that's coaching little league, that's coaching softball, taking the kids to cheer practice, whatever it is. But create yourself one of those transition rituals, whatever that looks like for you, right? New dads out there, if you haven't, gotten into a routine yet, because again, having a new kid is brand new to you, start to think about that, right? Start to think about that. All right, what is the baby's routine? Well, if mom is sleeping, I'm up, I have to feed. What is my routine going to be able to, make this, work and gel and be all good? And as they get older, as you get older and grow into your fatherhood journey, create those transition rituals. So, teaching a lot of times through sacrifice has some of the better outcomes. It has some of the good life lessons, morals, and values that you get to instill into your kids. Because a lot of times our kids do a lot more than just watch, right? Sometimes they listen, and they listen very well. They remember and pick up on a lot of stuff that we end up saying. What do I mean is they see dads wake up early, right? Getting dressed, strapping on and tying his boots, out there grinding, right? They see him, go off to work. And most importantly, they see how you end up showing up for them, how you end up, again, my dad is, the provider. And I like hearing that, like, my dad is my hero, because again, we do it and we sacrifice a lot as dads, as fathers, for the greater good of our kids, for their well-being, for their protection and guidance, and making sure that they understand that they don't have to worry because dad's out here busting his ass to make sure that, you guys are good. A lot of times our sacrifices become the foundation of resilience, good work ethic, right? Instill a good work ethic in your kids. So that way they, not saying that they're going to go out and bust their ass, 84, 90 hours a week like you are, but a good work ethic. Show up to work on time, be there, bust your ass, be honest at what you do. And that work ethic, prime example, and I'll give you another example into my life. My oldest, wanted to make some money. So we ended up talking to a family friend who had a T-shirt business and then, would sell T-shirts at some of these softball and baseball tournaments, right? So I was like, I'll go with you. You're going to run, to help you set up, move everything. And she was like, she was like 13 years old. So when that ended up happening, right? Because again, she kind of took after dad being a workaholic. She wanted to make her own money. So I was like, okay, well, you're going to go bust your butt. You're going to, set up the booth. I'll help you set up. I'll just be there in case anybody has any questions to, be the adult. But you're going to run the show. And I shit you not, her customer service at such a young age was on point. The way she counted money and counted it back. And at the end of the day, whenever, she ended up getting paid, she felt good about herself because she busted her ass and made $1. And I think that work ethic of, going out and being, the best that you can be at whatever you do made her do that. And I think just the gratitude in our kids for us going to work, they're grateful, especially at a young age. They see it, but they understand it as they get older. And then as they start transitioning into the workforce, they start seeing that. Prime example, the dad out there who missed school drop-offs but made every effort to show up for Sunday dinners, right? Teaching them consistency. I think that plays a big part. Like, we cannot be there for everything, especially if we're working. And I know in the past episode, lots of birthdays missed, lots of, family functions and whatnot. Yeah, we miss out on a lot. We sacrifice those things. But if you're there to make that routine, to know that they're going to get that Sunday dinner with dad, you're teaching them consistency, teaching them gratitude, resilience, good work ethic. So another little tip, right? Narrate your sacrifices. And when I say narrate, again, because the kids are not only watching, they're listening, especially if you have younger ones, right? Narrate them so that way they understand. Daddy's hands are rough because I work hard to build a better life for you. Or something along the lines like dad's hands are scarred and rough so yours don't have to be. Let them understand why your hands are roughed and calloused and cut up, right? Because again, when you hold that hand ever so gently of your baby girl, right, they feel, they touch, and they ask questions. What happened here, Daddy? Why do you have these scars? Why do you have that bump? Right? So just make sure you're vocal about some of the sacrifices that you are. Not everything, but again, stuff so that way they understand. And there is definitely an emotional weight that a lot of us dads end up carrying, and we don't show it. We don't talk about our emotions enough. We don't bring it up. Again, the way I was brought up, you don't talk about your emotions. You work through it. You bump your knee, you scrape your arm, you do something, get up, put a little bit of dirt on it, keep it moving, right? Again, coming from being raised in the 80s, like it was a different breed, different era. But other than that, I honestly think more men need to discuss some of that emotional weight, that those stresses that they might have. Because a lot of times we end up hiding a lot of our struggles that we're going through. We hide a lot of that stress. We try to hide the exhaustion, and a lot of times, you try to hide that with, drinking or, trying to play it off, energy drinks and stuff that, it is not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. Prime example, there was a lot of times when I would be on the night shift working, 10, 12-hour days, and I would have to to not be exhausted, I would end up drinking a Monster and then a 5-hour energy. And then in the middle of the shift, another 5-hour energy. And there came a time where in doing that, my heart was kind of beating out of my chest. My mind was racing. And, it's just one of those things. But I really hope dads that are listening right now that are catching this, I need y'all to start talking about some of those struggles, some of those stresses, and really, showing some of that emotion, letting some of that stuff out and letting some of that stuff go. Because a lot of times, especially in the construction industry, the industrial industry, mental health is definitely one of those things that we need to be paying attention to from our fellow, fathers. There's no matter what the stress is, home life could be bad. You could be going through a divorce. You could be going through, going through a grievance, a loss, grieving. All I ask you fathers out there that are listening, start talking about some of those stresses, some of those struggles. And it doesn't have to be to me, but my phone line, my email, my inbox, my DMs are always open. They will always be open. If you need to talk about anything at all, please do not hesitate to reach out. Because mental health is a real thing. You need to take care of your mental health, right? And in these blue collar fields, suicide is on the rise. And I do not want to lose one of you guys. I don't want your families to lose one of your guys. So I need y'all to open up a little bit. Shoot me a DM. Send me a message. Send me an email. We can talk. We can have a conversation. But I know we as dads feel very guilty for not being there and missing some of those moments just from being too tired, right? That mental battle that we carry between providing financially and being present emotionally, right, takes a toll. Like I can be drained from the week, but know that I have provided financially. Like that check is fixing to, clear. Kids are going to be good. Bills are going to be paid. We're straight. But being present emotionally because of what the job ends up taking from us, right? Lots of time, lots of energy, right? Physical, mental. So I just need us as a collective of fathers to really start harnessing in and talking about how we can protect our mental health, right? Emotionally, mentally, physically, all of that combined. How can we get better at what we're doing, so that way we can make sure we're there for our families. So just imagine, like a hardworking electrician dad who breaks down years later, realizing how much he has missed. I'm one of them. And again, this is a little bit longer episode, but it has my own experiences. I've been in that. I have broken down on jobs because of some of the stuff that I have missed over the years. And it's crazy because I have been away for very long stints of time that I feel like sometimes I haven't seen or been able to be there to see my daughters grow. Yes, technology has come a long way. I can see them through FaceTime. I can get a picture. But actually being there day in and day out to be able to see your kids grow, be by their side, right? Help them with their homework. It takes a toll. But with saying that, your kids, even though you might not have been there, they realize and remember your presence when it matters, right? For those hard conversations, when they just need a dad hug and you're there to give it to them. Yeah, those are the things that they remember. So another little tip, even a short 10-minute check-in with your kids every night creates those memories. Consistency trumps quantity or material things, right? Again, I say this, consistency trumps quantity or material things. Until they get older, then all that shit is out the window because they are going to try to, get this new, if you have girls, this new eyeliner or this new set of Lululemon shorts or this new shirt or these new shoes. And yeah, kids younger, yeah, you give them some toys, they're good, they're there. But as they get older, yeah, consistency is always going to trump quantity. But the material things, yeah, they'll get more expensive. And hey, if you have it, great. Spend it on them. They'll love you for it. They'll thank you for it. And you're putting a smile on your kid's face. If you don't have it, it's okay. It's okay to tell them no. Sometimes our kids need to be told no more. But also, we remember what it was like being told no. So I think we, give them a little leeway, a little grace. But so every callus is a promise kept. Your sacrifices are seeds of strength that your kids will grow into. So I encourage all you dads out there to reflect on your sacrifices and share those stories with your families. Share them with your kids and make sure that your kids know what gratitude is, right? They might not see it right now. One day, those calloused hands that you have, those scarred up hands that you have, will be their reminder of the love, of the sacrifice, of the strength, the resiliency, and the work ethic, morals, and values that you'd instilled in them. This has been Operation Fatherhood. I'm Dro the Sound God. Again, Dro the Sound God on all the social media platforms. Y'all reach out. Let me know how you liking the show. Leave me a review if you want to. It's great. It's not necessary, but I greatly appreciate everybody that has tuned in. And until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.